The smack echoed through first class so loudly that everything stopped. Conversations froze. Silverware clinked to a halt. Even the engine roar seemed to fade for a second. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you are listening. Your support means everything. My 2-year-old son, Miles, stared up at the flight attendant with wide, stunned eyes, one tiny hand on his cheek where she had just slapped him. And she looked horrified, not because she'd hurt a child, but because the entire cabin had seen her do it. She had no idea who he was. She had no idea who I was. Yet. Let me back up for a second. My name is Jordan Carter. I'm the CEO of Skylynx Air, a mid-sized airline that had spent the last 3 years trying to rebuild trust through better service, better training, and better culture. Ironically, I was on this flight to quietly test how our crew treated passengers. No one in the cabin knew who I was. I prefer it that way. No press, no special handling. Just a black man in a navy hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, traveling with his toddler. It's funny how people treat you when they don't think you're important. Or rather, when they think you shouldn't be. From the moment we walked into the first-class cabin, I could feel eyes on us. You learn to feel that weight when you grow up black in certain spaces. The pause. The quick scan. The silent question hanging in the air. Do they belong here? Miles was in his little dinosaur hoodie, clutching his stuffed giraffe, humming to himself. To him, first class just meant a bigger seat where he could climb and jump and press all the seat buttons. To some of the people around us, it clearly meant something else. The flight attendant, the one who would later slap my son, noticed us instantly. "Excuse me, sir," she said as I lifted Miles onto the seat. "Coach is down that way. This is first class." The smack echoed through first class so loudly that everything stopped. Conversations froze. Silverware clinked to a halt. Even the engine roar seemed to fade for a second. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you are listening. Your support means everything. My 2-year-old son, Miles, stared up at the flight attendant with wide, stunned eyes, one tiny hand on his cheek where she had just slapped him. And she looked horrified, not because she'd hurt a child, but because the entire cabin had seen her do it. She had no idea who he was. She had no idea who I was. Yet. Let me back up for a second. My name is Jordan Carter. I'm the CEO of Skylynx Air, a mid-sized airline that had spent the last 3 years trying to rebuild trust through better service, better training, and better culture. Ironically, I was on this flight to quietly test how our crew treated passengers. No one in the cabin knew who I was. I prefer it that way. No press, no special handling. Just a black man in a navy hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, traveling with his toddler. It's funny how people treat you when they don't think you're important. Or rather, when they think you shouldn't be. From the moment we walked into the first-class cabin, I could feel eyes on us. You learn to feel that weight when you grow up black in certain spaces. The pause. The quick scan. The silent question hanging in the air. Do they belong here? Miles was in his little dinosaur hoodie, clutching his stuffed giraffe, humming to himself. To him, first class just meant a bigger seat where he could climb and jump and press all the seat buttons. To some of the people around us, it clearly meant something else. The flight attendant, the one who would later slap my son, noticed us instantly. "Excuse me, sir," she said as I lifted Miles onto the seat. "Coach is down that way. This is first class." Her tone wasn't helpful or informative. It was sharp. Corrective. Like I'd wandered into a private office. I smiled politely and held up our boarding passes. "We're in 2A and 2B, I said. She squinted at them, then at me. Then at Miles. There it was. That little flicker in her eyes. Not confusion. Judgment. "Oh," she said finally, forcing a smile. My apologies. I just wanted to make sure. She walked away, but I could feel her watching us from the galley, whispering to another attendant. My stomach tightened. Not the first time I'd had to prove I belonged in a seat I'd paid for. Probably not the last. But I had no idea how far this was going to go. A few minutes later, while people were still boarding, she reappeared. Would you like a pre-departure drink? She asked the woman across the aisle, laying a cloth napkin down with a warm smile. To the man next to her, champagne, sir. Orange juice. Water. She moved down the row, offering choices, making small talk. Light laughter, clinking glasses. When she reached us, the smile faded a notch. For him, she said, glancing at Miles, we don't really serve anything before takeoff. Safety, you know. That's fine, I said calmly. Just some water for me, please. She took a breath, like she was bracing herself to say something else. Are you traveling alone with him? She asked. Yes, I said. No. I mean, is he your child? She added, voice lower now. I stared at her for a second, trying to process that she'd actually said it. He's my son, I said quietly. Is that a problem? Her cheeks flushed. No, of course not. We have to be careful, that's all. She walked away quickly. Across the aisle, a middle-aged white man in a suit gave me an awkward smile. Some people don't know how to talk to other human beings, he muttered. I nodded and forced a small laugh, but inside, my chest was burning. I took a deep. That I was here in passenger mode. Observe, don't explode. But then Miles started singing his ABCs, loudly, and I could already tell patience in this cabin would be in short supply. Takeoff was smooth. Miles pressed his face to the window as the city shrank below us. Daddy, we flying. We flying, he shouted. A few passengers smiled. A few frowned. The attendant in question didn't even pretend to be amused. After we leveled out, she came down the aisle again. Sir, she said, leaning close. You'll need to keep him quiet. This is a premium cabin. People here pay for peace and quiet. I blinked at her. He's two, I said softly. He's excited. I'm doing my best. Maybe a tablet, she suggested. Or you could take him to the back if he can't settle. My jaw tightened. I paid for this seat like everyone else, I said. We're staying right here. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Of course. She glanced at Miles like he was a problem to be solved instead of a human child. And again, that look. That unspoken sentence. You don't belong in this space. You're disturbing the order of things. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. It happened during the meal service. Miles had finally calmed down, playing with his toy airplane while I tried to eat with one hand and keep him from launching peas with the other. The same flight attendant came around with hot drinks. Coffee for you, she asked the woman behind me. Tea, she asked another. When she reached us, Miles saw the shiny metal pot and the little cups and got excited. Juice, he asked, pointing. We've already given you juice, she said, not even looking at him. And I think you've had enough sugar. I opened my mouth to say something, but before I could, another attendant, a younger guy with kind eyes, leaned over from the cart. I can bring him some more water in a sippy cup, he said gently. Fine, she snapped. Just don't let him spill it everywhere. I've seen what happens with kids like that. Kids like what? I felt the anger spike in my chest. But I didn't want to blow up in front of Miles. I didn't want him to associate flying with yelling and tension. So I swallowed it and took a slow breath. The younger attendant brought the water. Miles grabbed it with both hands, grinning. Thank you, I said to him. You're welcome, he replied, giving Miles a little wink. For a few minutes, everything was okay. Then the plane hit a tiny bit of turbulence. The cabin jolted. My cup rattled. Miles startled and, instinctively, squeezed his cup tighter. It slipped out of his hands, bounced off the armrest, and sent a wave of water across the aisle and down the front of the flight attendant's pristine white blouse as she walked past. Time slowed. She gasped, looking down at the spreading wet stain like she'd been doused in acid. "Oh my God," she screamed. "Are you kidding me?" Miles' eyes filled with tears. I Zoe," he whispered. She turned on him, eyes blazing. "This is why we don't put children in first class," she hissed. "You people just..." She cut herself off, but not before the words, "you people," hung in the air like smoke. Then it happened. She reached out and smacked him. It wasn't a full-force hit, but it was enough to snap his head to the side, enough to leave a red mark on his cheek, enough to make him wail in shock and pain. Everything inside me went silent. Then it absolutely exploded. I stood up so fast my seatbelt yanked at my waist. "What did you just do?" My voice came out low and steady, but every muscle in my body was buzzing. She froze, realizing instantly she had messed up. I didn't mean, she stammered, looking around, hoping someone would back her up. No one did. The cabin was dead quiet. Miles sobbed, reaching for me. I scooped him up gently, kissing his forehead, then turned back to her. "You put your hands on my child," I said. "I just reacted," she said, panic creeping into her voice. "He threw water on me." "It was an accident," I shot back. "He's a toddler. And even if it wasn't an accident, you never, ever touch a passenger's child. Are you out of your mind?" Her eyes darted from me to the other passengers. "Sir, I'm sure we can calm down and talk this through," she said, switching into customer service voice. "You're being very aggressive right now." It was like a match dropped in gasoline. Aggressive. The favorite word used on black men who dare to be upset when we're disrespected. The man in the suit across the aisle spoke up. "I saw everything," he said. "The kid dropped the cup when the plane shook. That was on you, not him. And you hit him." A woman behind me added, "I heard what you said too." "You people." "Really?" The younger male attendant came rushing up from the galley, eyes wide when he saw Miles crying. "What happened?" he asked. "She struck my son," I said. "I want to speak to the captain. Now." The female attendant's face went pale. "Sir, there's no need." "I'm not asking," I said. "Bring the captain." For a moment, I thought she might refuse. Then she spun around and hurried toward the cockpit. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. Miles' sobs had turned into soft hiccups as he buried his face in my shoulder. "Daddy, hurt," he whispered. "I know, buddy," I said, voice breaking. "I'm right here. She will never touch you again. I promise." But even as I said it, part of me wondered what kind of damage moments like this do to a kid's sense of safety, and to a man who's spent his whole life trying to create safer spaces. A few minutes later, the captain appeared. He was an older white guy, calm, professional face, captain's hat still on. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, looking between me, Miles, and the attendant. "There is a very serious problem," I said. "Your flight attendant hit my son." The captain's eyes widened. "Is this true?" he asked her. She swallowed hard. "I reacted," she said quickly. "He splashed water all over me." I was shocked, and my hand just moved. "It wasn't." "It doesn't matter," I cut in. "You understand that, right? You're trained for this. You're trained to handle children, to handle stress, to handle spills. Not to handle it like that." The captain looked genuinely shaken. "Sir," he said, meeting my eyes. "I'm very sorry. We'll handle this. Let's move to the galley to talk so your child can calm down." I took a deep breath. "I'm not leaving my seat," I said. "We can talk right here. In front of the people who saw what happened." He hesitated. The cabin stayed silent. The younger attendant spoke up. "Captain, I saw the aftermath. The child's cheek is red. The other passengers saw her strike him. We had some concerning comments before that too." The female attendant shot him a look of betrayal. "Whose side are you on?" she whispered. "I'm on the side of the truth," he replied quietly. I adjusted Miles in my arms. My heart was racing, but my voice came out clear. "Captain," I said. "There are two things you need to know. First, I expect you to file an incident report and remove her from duty for the remainder of this flight. Second." I paused, feeling the whole cabin lean in. "He's the CEO's son." The captain blinked. "I'm sorry." I looked him in the eye. "He's my son," I said. "My name is Jordan Carter. I'm the CEO of Skylinks Air. Your airline." The flight attendant's hand flew to her mouth. "Wait, what?" she whispered, color draining from her face. The captain stared at me, searching my face, maybe trying to decide if I was bluffing. The man across the aisle shook his head and chuckled in disbelief. "Wow," he whispered. "She really picked the wrong kid who doesn't belong today." I pulled my wallet from the seat pocket and slid out a metal business card we give to partners and board members. It has our logo, my name, and my title engraved on it. I handed it to the captain. He read it. Once. Twice. His shoulders sagged. "Mr. Carter," he said slowly. I had no idea you were on this flight." "That's the point," I replied. "No one should have to be someone important to be treated with basic respect. Especially my child." The captain nodded, shame flickering across his face. "You're absolutely right," he said. He turned to the attendant. "You're done. For this flight and probably for much longer. Go sit in the jump seat in the back. I'll handle the rest." Her lip trembled. "Please," she whispered. I didn't know who he was. That's exactly the problem," I said softly. "You didn't think who he was mattered." She walked away, head down, whispers following her like a shadow. The younger attendant stayed, clearly shaken but composed. "Mr. Carter," he said, "may I bring something for your son? Ice for his cheek. Maybe some milk." Miles peeked out from my shoulder, eyes still shiny. "Milk?" he sniffled. "Yes, sir," the attendant smiled. "I'll make sure it's in a spill-proof cup this time." I nodded, emotion rising in my throat. "Thank you," I said. "What's your name?" "Ethan," he replied. "Thank you, Ethan," I repeated. "I'll remember that." He gave a small nod and moved quickly to the galley. The captain cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, turning to address the cabin. "We've had an incident involving a member of our crew. I want to assure you that it's being dealt with according to company policy, and I apologize for any distress you may have witnessed. If you have any concerns, please let us know." He met my eyes one more time. "Mr. Carter, when we land, there will be a full report. I truly am sorry." I held his gaze for a second. "So am I," I said. "But sorry isn't enough. Not this time." The rest of the flight felt surreal. Passengers leaned over one by one, quietly offering words of support. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that," the woman behind me said. "Your son is beautiful. No one should ever put their hands on him." "That was completely out of line," the man across the aisle added. If you need a witness, I saw everything. I wrote down names. Not because I needed revenge, but because I needed the truth documented. As Miles drank his milk and finally fell asleep with his head in my lap, I just sat there, staring at the window, letting the clouds drift by. I kept replaying it over and over. Every step of it. The initial doubt at the gate. The questioning my seat. The extra scrutiny. The "kids like that" comment. The "you people." The slap. And then that phrase. I didn't know who he was. Like it would have been okay to hit some anonymous black kid, just not the CEO's kid. That thought made my stomach twist. I knew then that what I did next mattered much more than just one employee's job. It was about what kind of airline I was really running. What kind of father I was. What kind of world I wanted my son to grow up in. When we landed, there were already people waiting at the gate. The head of cabin services. HR security. They'd been alerted mid-flight. I carried Miles, still half asleep, through the jet bridge. Mr. Carter, the cabin services director said, looking both nervous and determined. "We've been briefed. We're so sorry this happened. We'd like to take you to a private office to discuss." "No," I said gently but firmly. "We'll talk. But not privately. Not secretly. And not just about what happened to me." They blinked, surprised. I nodded toward the flight crew coming off the plane. "I want her present," I said. "And I want Ethan there too." The female attendant walked slowly, like she was being led into a courtroom. Her eyes were red. She'd clearly been crying. We all ended up in a conference room near the terminal. Miles sat on my lap with a coloring book someone had scrambled to find, while the director, HR, the captain, Ethan, and the attendant sat across from us. The director started. "Before anything else, I want to apologize," she said. "What happened today was unacceptable. We will be taking immediate disciplinary action, including termination." "Stop," I said quietly. Everyone went still. I looked at the attendant. "What's your name?" I asked. "Samantha," she whispered. "Samantha," I repeated. "Tell me exactly what was going through your head when you saw us." "From the moment we walked into the cabin." Her eyes flicked to HR, then back to me. I don't know," she said. "I just thought." She swallowed, struggling with the words. "You thought we didn't belong there," I finished for her. Tears spilled over. "Yes," she whispered. "At first. I thought maybe you were in the wrong cabin, or maybe. I don't know, using someone else's upgrade. And then when he started making noise and you wouldn't move to the back, and the spill. You saw what you expected to see," I said. "A loud black child. An aggressive black father. A mess in your clean first class." She winced, like each word hit her. "And when you said, 'you people'?" I asked. "I didn't mean," she tried. "But you did," I said, not unkindly, just firmly. "Because that's what's in your head. That we are a type. A group. A problem. Not individual human beings." She broke then. Shoulders shaking, she covered her face with her hands. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I've never hit a child before. I don't even know why I did it. I just reacted. And I know that doesn't excuse anything. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't know how I became this person." The room was quiet except for her crying and the scratch of Miles' crayon. I took a long breath. "This is the part where I could tell you you're fired," I said. "And maybe that would feel like justice. But it wouldn't fix what's broken inside you, or what's broken in the system that trained you, hired you, and put you in that position." The HR rep looked confused. "Mr. Carter," she said carefully, "are you saying you don't want her terminated?" I'm saying, I replied, that firing her is the easy part. The harder part is admitting that her bias didn't appear out of nowhere. It lives in all the little cracks we've ignored. In who gets callbacks. In who gets promoted. In who gets quietly questioned when they sit in first class. I looked at Samantha. You will not work another flight until you've gone through serious training, counseling, and evaluation, I said. That's non-negotiable. Whether you ever wear that uniform again will depend on whether you actually change, not on whether you cry in a meeting. She nodded rapidly, tears still flowing. And there will be consequences, I added. Formal ones. A record. You struck a passenger's child and that is absolutely unacceptable. Her shoulders drooped. But, I continued, I'm not going to pretend I've never done something I regretted when my own biases were pushed to the surface. I'm not going to pretend I'm perfect. What I am going to do is make sure this moment becomes a turning point, not just another headline. The director leaned forward. What do you have in mind? She asked. I looked at Miles, then back at them. We're going to change how we train our staff, I said. Mandatory, in-depth anti-bias and de-escalation training. Not a 20-minute video. Real workshops. Real accountability. And we'll start with this crew. With Samantha telling this story, not as the villain, but as the warning. Samantha stared at me, stunned. You want me to talk about this? She asked. Yes, I said. If you're willing. Because there are 100 other crew members who would never say, you people, out loud, but think it silently. They need to see what happens when those thoughts turn into actions. Ethan nodded quietly. I'd help with that, he said. We need it. The captain exhaled slowly. So do we, he said. Up front. HR scribbled notes furiously. And one more thing, I added. We're going to create a passenger protection policy specifically addressing racism and discrimination. Not just in vague terms. Clear procedures. Clear consequences. And we'll publish it openly. The director nodded. Consider it done, she said. We'll draft it and review it with you. I looked back at Samantha. I can't guarantee you'll keep your job, I said honestly. That's not how this works. But I can guarantee that if you truly want to change, if you're willing to face the ugliest parts of yourself and do the work, this moment doesn't have to be the end of your story. She wiped her eyes. I want to try, she whispered. I don't want to be that person anymore. I studied her for a long second. Then start by saying the thing you've been avoiding, I said. Say what you need to admit to yourself. Her gaze dropped to the table. I saw a black man in first class with a kid who looked out of place, she said slowly. And I assumed you didn't belong. I treated you like you were less important than the other passengers. I let myself believe that your son was a problem before he ever did anything. And when he made a mistake, I reacted with anger I never would have used on a white child. The room went dead quiet. That is racism, she said, voice shaking. I was racist. I hurt your son because of it. And I am so sorry. Miles looked up from his coloring book like he'd felt the weight in her words. Daddy, he whispered. We go home now. Yeah, buddy, I said, kissing his hair. We're going home soon. But I knew we weren't going back to the same world we left. At least, not if I could help it. A few weeks later, the story leaked. Not from me, surprisingly. A passenger had quietly recorded part of the incident on their phone and shared it anonymously, blurring Miles' face. The headline read: Black CEO's toddler slapped in first class by flight attendant, company responds with overhaul. It blew up. People were outraged, as they should be. But instead of only releasing a prepared apology, we did something different. We released a full statement. We acknowledged the racism directly. Not racially charged. Not an unfortunate misunderstanding. We called it what it was. We announced the new training program. The new anti-discrimination policy. The anonymous reporting system for passengers and employees. We announced that Samantha had been suspended without pay and would only return to flying if she completed a full program of education and evaluation, and if she was cleared by an independent panel. Some people said I was too soft. Others said I was too harsh. But I wasn't doing it for them. We also released a video internally where I spoke as CEO and as Miles' father. I told the story in simple terms. I talked about how racism isn't just slurs screamed in the street. It's assumptions. It's tone. It's who you think belongs in certain seats. It's who gets grace when they make a mistake, and who gets slapped. A few months later, I got an email. It was from Samantha. She wrote about the books she'd been reading. The therapist she was seeing. The workshops she'd attended where she sat and listened to black parents talk about what it feels like to send their kids into a world that sees them as older, louder, scarier than they really are. She didn't ask for her job back in that email. She just said, "Thank you for not letting me hide from what I did. I don't expect you to. You to know I am not wasting this second chance at being a better human being." I stared at that line for a long time. Later that night, I sat on Miles' bed as he slept, his little hand around my finger. His cheek didn't remember the sting anymore. But my heart did. And as I watched him breathe, I realized something. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about protection. It's about transformation. It's about making sure the next black child who sits in first class doesn't have to prove he belongs there, or hope his father is the CEO to be treated like a human being. We're not there yet. But that day on the plane, as awful as it was, pushed us one step closer. And if there's one thing I want Miles to learn from it when he's older, it's this. Your worth is not defined by the seat you're in, the color of your skin, or the title on your parents' business card. You deserve respect because you are human. Everyone does. Even the people who forget that, at least until life forces them to remember.